Spiders. I never complained about arachnophobia when I was a kid. Moreover, my school friend had a home terrarium with a tarantula, and he often showed me his pet. And my favorite Marvel superhero is Spider-Man. However, a recent story happened to me. After reading the mere mention of these arthropod creatures gives me a panic attack. Last summer my parents got divorced. Mom got an early day off from work. She went home. And there she found my father with another woman. She couldn't get over the affair. And a week after that, she packed her things, took me and my little sister with her and left my father. The sad thing was that my father was not against this scenario. But that's not the point now. We moved into our dead grandmother's house. All this time my parents tried to sell it, but they couldn't find a buyer. Now we're going to live here. My sister Jane got the biggest room on the second floor with a panoramic window and the view of the main gate of the house. I got the room near the stairs and the attic. I didn't argue, for I hope we wouldn't be here long, and that we'll be back with that soon. The first day in the new place passed unnoticed. We unpacked and cleaned the house. In the evening we sat down to dinner. I brushed my teeth before going to bed, wished my mother and sister a good night's sleep, and went to bed. Staring at the ceiling, trying to sleep, I couldn't stop thinking that my carefree childhood was over. My father was no longer with us, and now I was the only man in the family. Suddenly, I heard light, rapid tapping sound somewhere upstairs. It was as if someone on the floor above had scattered a bunch of small balls on the floor. I tried to listen more closely, but the sound was not repeated. Strange, I thought, for the house is 2 stories high, and there can be no one above me. The only thing above me is an empty old attic. I did not pay much attention to the strange sound. I shouldn't have. The next morning I awoke, not to an alarm, but to a wild scream in the next room. It was Jane. I jumped out of bed and ran to my sister's room. My mother came running after me in a panic. Jane was sitting on the floor, covered in tears, and her arm was covered in bloody cuts. It was as if someone had tried to cut her fingers off along her palm. When asked what happened, there was only mute silence. After a while, doctors diagnosed her with aphasia, a speech disorder which occurred to her that morning. Her eyes were filled with terror. It seemed as if she saw something in her room. Something that wasn't there yesterday. Looking around, I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. Suddenly, a cobweb over my sister's bed. It was strange, because yesterday we had spent the whole day meticulously cleaning the house. The second floor was on my mom. She certainly would have missed such a huge piece of cobwebs. Where did it come from? Neither mom nor I could answer that question. The next night Jane slept with her mother. I refused to share a sleepover, because I thought I was old enough to sleep with my mother. teenage hormones. Before the sleep hour, I brushed my teeth and went to bed. Thoughts of this morning incident never left my mind. Suddenly, the same sound of little balls falling to the floor again. I stared at the ceiling, as if that was supposed to help me listen. It was the same sound again, but now it was moving toward the door. I got out of bed and slowly walked toward the sound. Where was it coming from? And who was doing it? I had no doubt that there was someone upstairs. As I came out of my room, I looked up the ceiling. There was a retractable ladder, and I climbed up to the attic. The source of the sound was sitting there. Why didn't I call my mother? I don't know. I guess at the moment, I was seized with a creeping interest in what was going on upstairs. I put my foot on the first rung of the stairs, then the second, then the third, trying to see something in the darkness. After a few steps, my head sank completely into the attic. I took a flashlight out of my pocket and pointed it deep into the attic and pressed the on button. A ghastly sight opened before me. Large white of spider webs were hanging in all over the space. And there were huge spider cocoons on the ceiling. What the fuck is going on up here? I climbed fully into the attic, examining my surroundings. Suddenly, a hissing sound was heard from behind me. The only other sound I'd ever heard before was from my high school friend's bed, a spider. Only this time, the sound was much louder. Turning sharply, I pointed the flashlight in the direction of the sound. Under the light, thick, long, hairless spider's paws appeared. The monster living in our attic crawled out of this lair, bearing his demonic case. I'd only seen creatures this huge in the Harry Potter movies. It had sharp tentacles sticking out of its mouth, which was probably what had got my sister. I screamed in horror and quickly got out of the attic, forgetting to lock it behind me. When I ran to my mother on the first floor, I heard the same sound of the falling balls behind me. It was his bones moving across the floor. The spider was running after me. When she ran into my mother's room, she jumped up from the bed with a frightened look. I shut the door tightly and slowly stepped back without taking my eyes off her, afraid that the spider was about to open it with its huge paws. "Mom, there's a spider! A huge thing the size of a man!" A destructive sound seeped from the old fireplace. Sensing fresh blood, the monster tried to sneak in to feast on the prey that had come to his house. Suddenly, abruptly, the arthropod jumped out of the fireplace, crawling at my mother's neck. I immediately struck the spider, throwing it as far away as possible. Mom coughed hard, spitting white goo out of her mouth. There was a bloody open wound on her chest from the bite. I immediately helped her to her feet, but the spider attacked her again. She clutched at its hairy paws and tried to resist, not letting the spider touch her with its nasty teeth. Suddenly, Mom stretched its paws apart, tearing the spider apart. White spider slime spread over her hands. Was it really over? Mom grabbed the car keys, and my sister and I ran out of the demon house, trying to get us far away as possible, leaving all our belongings to the torn spider that was left lying on the floor of the room. All the way, I kept my eyes on my mother, hoping that the spider bite wasn't poisonous and that we will be safe in this car. If you like this story, subscribe to my channel and watch the previous video.